Hey guys, it's RodimusPrimal. I am back with another video, and today I have a special guest with me today, and that is none other than the talented actress and voice actress, Linsay Rousseau?
Rousseau.
Rousseau. For those of you unaware, she is currently the voice of the War for Cybertron trilogy's Elita 1. So how's it going, Linsay?
Good. It's going pretty well.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
All right. So we're going to get this interview started. I mean, we might be talking some Siege spoilers, so be prepared for a little bit of that.
I mean, I feel like it's been out for 5 months. It's the 2-week window of spoiler-free zone is over.
Yep. So at least that is out of the way. But of course, we can't do any spoilers yet for Earthrise.
Nope,
right?
None.
So without further ado, let's sit back, relax, make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and let's transform and roll out. Consider supporting the channel on Patreon, becoming a channel member, or purchasing some merch on my Teespring store today.
Of course I do. This was not the life I imagined for us.
But it's a life worth fighting for.
Okay, so let's get this interview started. For those of you who don't know about you, Linsay, please, why don't you tell us about yourself, your career, how you got into acting, and all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh wow! How much time do we have? I've been an actor my whole life. I started in theater and music when I was very, very, very young. Lots of musical theater and things like that, and played a lot of instruments. But I went to college and continued to do that stuff on the side, and then decided I found myself in the Army, and I was in the Army, and I spent a year in Iraq. I was a combat photographer and public affairs sergeant. And I wasn't really sure what to do with my life when I got back. And I was like, well, I've been doing this photography journalism thing. Let's just keep doing that. So I went to UC Berkeley and got my master's in journalism, and was working for PBS Frontline for a while, and then just realized I kind of had enough. I was stressed out. I was, I loved what I did, but it was just like, it was a lot of stress, a lot of work. And I was like, the only time I was really happy was when I was performing. And so I decided to quit journalism, and I went back to theater, and I did theater, full time in the San Francisco Bay Area for about 6 years. Also I was a certified substitute teacher, so I was doing that all day, and I was teaching singing lessons, and then finally found my way into voiceover, and was just like, oh, this is where I belong. This is what I need to be doing. Because I've always been a huge, gamer, a huge video game fan. And I remember I was playing through Mass Effect when that first came out as Femme Shepherd, as you should only play Mass Effect as Femme Shepherd. Just putting that out there. And I was just literally blown away. And I was like Googling, I was like, Jennifer Hale. Who is this Jennifer Hale? And literally that was kind of the aha moment for me when I was like, that's what I want to be doing. I love theater. Theater will always be my passion. But I was like, and so I made the transition into voiceover, and, every year is just a little bit better than the year before. And, I love everything about it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of hustling. It's a lot of training. It's a lot of everything. But you do all of that 99% of the grunt work for that 1%, when it's like you do have the opportunity to, play a character like Elita 1. That's what makes everything worth it.
People don't realize it's like how much work you got to put into whatever it is that you're passionate about to do.
Yes, and, exactly. You guys just get to see the fun part. It's like you don't see all the blood, sweat, and tears behind the scenes.
So, my other question, so your career obviously landed you a role into the Transformers universe.
Yeah.
Were you always a fan of Transformers ahead of time, or was that something that, as you went into it, you eventually like?
Yeah, no, I mean, I was like a casual fan, when I was a kid, I definitely collected Transformers. My parents would give me one every year to play with. So of course I was very familiar with it. I'd watched the cartoon as a kid, but I was definitely not like deep into Transformers lore and all the iterations and all of that. So yeah, when I when I was cast in the show, and because I am a huge geek and I understand just how important fandom is, I definitely started delving into it. And for me, the comics were really important. I always like to go to the source material. And especially for Elita 1, you know, she doesn't have a lot of visibility in the cartoons and the movies or anything, but in the comics, you know, she's got a pretty good presence. So
you said you had not like watched the cartoon, I guess, much more than just like a little bit here and there.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I watched it, you know, and I, you know, collected some of the toys, but yeah.
Okay. Now, did you specifically audition for Elita 1, or did you audition?
Oh no, that's not how it works here in Hollywood. For those of us rank and file actors, man, the day I get to be offer only when people are like, "Please, we have this role for you." No, no, and I actually didn't even know what I was auditioning for. You know, the way the industry is these days, especially in video games, but also for animation sometimes too, is when you get auditions, it's very common that they're using a code name, that they've changed any names or any references that might give away what it is. So that is happening. That happens a lot in this industry. And no, it was just an audition that came out like any other audition. You know, I was like, oh, animated series, kind of a soldier character. And I was like, oh, this is, and even when I just got, not even knowing what it was, I was like, oh, this character really speaks to me. Even with that short audition, because, you know, as a veteran, as someone who served in war, I was really excited when they got this audition, and had no idea what it was for. I think it literally said like animated series for a streaming service. I don't even think it said what it was for. And then I heard nothing for months. And again, in this industry, because especially with voiceover, you get so many auditions. You literally, you do it and you move on. You do it and you move on. Like you can't, stir on things. You have to just move on to the next thing. And it was like literally like 4 months later, and I got a call. It was like, hey, you've got a call back for this thing you auditioned for. And I was like, what was it? And I had to look up what it was. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And it was an in-person audition. I went in for the callback, and that's when they told me what it was. And I was just like, and then I was like, okay, this is a big deal. You know,
especially being Transformers is like a big franchise.
Yeah, and it's always, you know, and again, as a geek myself, it's, you know, you really feel the weight of that, because you know that every iteration is going to be different and new and fresh. And obviously you've talked to FJ, like his what he's done with this franchise, with the Siege, with the the War for Cybertron trilogy, you know, it's his vision, and every iteration is different, but you still have all those decades worth of lore and fandom behind it. So it's that balancing act. And, you know, so I was very aware of like, okay, this is important. This is a big deal. And so that made me a little more nervous, but it also made me really excited. And also because I guess maybe one of the nice things about not knowing what it was before I got there was that I didn't have any preconceived ideas built up into my head. You know, I was approaching the character just like I would any other audition where I don't have any information about it, where I really felt like I could make her my own. Obviously using the amazing script that has been provided. I love the writing in the show is fantastic. And then, you know, got a call probably a couple months after that, and was like, yeah, you've been cast in this thing, and we're doing 3 seasons. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And, you know, then I was like, okay, let's look up who this Elita 1 character is. You know, I'd heard her name, but again, she wasn't very prominent in the comic or in the cartoons or anything. And, you know, for me, I also was kind of like, it was a little bit of a relief too, to know that yes, she has been portrayed, before, but she doesn't have the baggage that like Megatron and Optimus and Bumblebee have. Like, you know, iconic people have played those characters.
Not trying to do a Frank Welker.
It's like, I'm not trying to do anybody else. I'm just trying to do me. And I'm trying to do what my version of Elita 1 is. And that was kind of a little freeing too, because whenever, you know, and of course I have a lot of friends who voice iconic characters, and whenever you step into one of those roles, it's, how can I make this my own, but still know that I've still got to kind of keep it with what's already been established.
So you say you didn't know much about the character, obviously going in, which was probably refreshing, at least for the approach to the character. But also, I guess you said your military background helped out in bringing that soldier's attitude and everything. I mean, my brother actually was he was a Marine in Afghanistan. Yeah. So believe me, I know like when you come home, it's like a different feel, the way that you act, the way you behave, and it's I can only imagine. But like bringing that to Elita 1 probably gave her a lot of emotion in a way, because you were able to portray that.
And that was something, the director Phil Bach, who is one of the best directors I've ever worked with. I mean, he's one of the reasons that I think the show is as good as it is, because he just pushed us to get the best performance possible, which I really appreciate. Because he'd be like, "Yeah, that was a good take. That's a keeper take. Think we can do better." And we usually could, but we had those conversations. He's like, "Okay, I'm going to want you to like go to those places that you were when you were in Iraq." Because, and that's kind of part of what we do as actors, is we do try to tap into personal experiences to be able to relate. And, for better or for worse, I did have personal experiences that were very much relatable, and that I was able to draw on for this character, which helped, because Elita's in the middle of a really horrible war. I mean, the first time we see them, when they open up in Siege, is like, they're at the end of their ropes. They've been doing this, they're exhausted. And that was one thing I really appreciated about what they've done with this show, is that they don't glorify it. No. It's dirty, it's messy, it's exhausting, people die. It's, even if you think you're doing the good or the right thing, it might not be the right thing. And sometimes the wrong thing is maybe the right thing. And so I really appreciated the grittiness that they brought to this show.
There's a lot of gray area.
Yeah. And so, I definitely had to tap into some of my military experience and for this role, for this character. And that's one of the reasons I think why she is so special to me, is because I really, and you put a part of yourself in all the characters you play. But for me, it's like, I really felt that she is a part of me, because so much of what I, was in my personal life was put into her.
Wow. That's awesome. That's really awesome, because it goes to show you, because that's one of the things about Elita 1 in that show. Now, if you don't know the backstory about her, and maybe I might be informing you a little bit, going from the super nerd to it. The way her character was conceived was actually, there were no female Transformers in the franchise before that point, when the cartoon episode was made.
Right.
What happened was that, and this growing up in the 80s, is that, at the time, boys franchises were boys franchises, girls franchises were girls franchises. Like, boys didn't play with
boys had Transformers, girls had My Little Ponies.
Exactly. And where we intersect is like, all the fun stuff nowadays as we become adults, and now our kids like to enjoy it together. But at the same time, like, if you had sisters, the sister would play with it, and you would have the Barbie doll playing alongside your G.I. Joe or Transformers toy, and My Little Pony and stuff. Right? Mm-hmm. Yep. There was a character that Ron Friedman, who was the writer for Transformers the movie, fought to get a female Transformer made, and her name was RC. Mm-hmm. And so RC was the first written Transformers character. And then, but that wasn't the first one conceived. Believe it or not, Ratchet, the doctor, was actually supposed to be female initially.
Oh, okay. That would have been interesting.
But when Hasbro was like, well, Transformers is a boy's toy. Boys won't buy that toy if it's a girl.
Yes.
Right? So they decided not to. And then in the second, so after, like, they conceived the movie, but the movie was going to take place after season 2. So they created, once they got the okay for RC in the movie, then they went ahead and wrote the season 2 episode that introduced the whole female team of Transformers. And that's where Elita 1 came from. And did you grow up watching Gem?
I didn't. So I grew up, my parents were National Park Rangers. So we lived in a lot of remote areas. So I actually didn't have access to television for most of my childhood.
Gotcha.
But also I have to put out, like, my parents were very much, I was raised in a gender neutral household. I have a younger brother, but my parents were very adamant. They did not like genderized toys. So we played with stuffed animals. We played with, you know, toys that made our brain work. So like Transformers are great because it was, you know, tactile and manipulating things. But I think I had maybe a Barbie, but yeah, no, I didn't watch Gem, even though I know that I trained with the woman who was in the show, which is hilarious.
Okay, because the original voice actress for the way her story actually ended up being was they made that episode with her, and Marlene Aragon, I think her name is, was the voice actress who was Synergy in Gem, was Elita 1 in Transformers. And then they did an episode where it was a young Optimus Prime named Orion Pax and his girlfriend Ariel, and Megatron kills them. And then they get rebuilt into Optimus Prime. And then they threw in the line that like, oh, a female warrior, I'll name her Elita 1. And that was actually voiced by Samantha Newark, who was Gem.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like literally Gem voiced Elita 1 initially. And so that's why I asked if you knew about the history about the character, because it was kind of like important to her history. How it like is all intersected in a way.
Gotcha.
And you know, which was groundbreaking in a way because of how like that they brought those characters in. And you know, because there are sisters who wants to watch Transformers with her brothers.
Yeah.
And so they bring those characters in.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I am not a fan of this whole concept of genderized fandom. I don't like genderized toys. I don't like genderized cartoons. I just feel like people should be able to enjoy whatever it is regardless. And I think we've come so far in the past 30, 40 years that, you know, and that's why it was really important to me with Elita 1 is like, yes, I want to be able to, I feel very honored to be able to voice this amazing female character, because it's important for me to have little girls out there who can watch a show like Transformers and be able to relate and connect and see something that excites them, but also that little boys can too. It's like, or anybody within that spectrum, you know, we should be able to enjoy good characters and good storytelling without having, you know, some corporation being like, no, this is a boys thing and this is a girls thing. It's like, but it is very important to have representation. You know, when The Last Jedi came out, I had a friend who recently, you know, who had a daughter, and, you know, and those of us who are like big Star Wars fans are like, oh, the new ones, whatever. But it was a really transformative moment for him, because his little girl at one point, told him, hey, now I can use a lightsaber. Because, you know, when you're out playing on the park, you know, playing in the playground or whatever, it's like, oh, okay, well, we've got all these male Jedis that we've seen represented in the fandom. And yes, if we're going to the cartoons, we have, but in the movies,
Ahsoka, we need more.
It's very important for people to be able to see themselves and be like, oh, women can have Jedis too. Heck yeah, now I'm gonna have a Jedi. It's like, oh, women are Transformers. So that's, you know, so even if you're taking that and then putting it out on the playground, it gives someone else, you know, something that they can relate to. And then as long as we're showing kids and even adults now, it's like, you can be whoever you want to be. You can be excited about whatever you want to be excited about. And I think fandoms have come so far, like I said, in the past 40, 50 years, in that no one's going to make fun of you if you play D&D for a living. Whereas, you know, it's like, it's okay.
Yeah, no, I was a nerd who
like what you like.
So.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, it's like, I really don't want people to think like, oh, Transformers is a boys thing. I think what they really did with War for Cybertron is show that like, this is just good storytelling with good characters, and there's a little something for everyone. And I get, you know, people reaching out to me on Twitter being like, oh my gosh, my daughter loves this show. I watched it with her. She loves Elita 1. And I was like, yay. So things like that really excite me.
That's cool. That's really, really cool. Yeah. So I'm hoping that my history lesson on her character at least shed some light, you know, and how her character was kind of groundbreaking in a way. Her whole team, she actually had a team.
Well, and then, I mean, like, I started using the hashtag Elita Army, but like, and again, if you go to the comics, like, Elita had her own army of like fembots, and I hate the term fembots, but we'll use it because that's what's been established. But yeah, I mean, with Chromia and RC and Elita, it's like there's some pretty amazing characters in there.
Moonracer.
Yeah, Moonracer, exactly.
And Firestar, and she's rescuing RC. And like you had said, like she had her character was like fleshed out a lot more in this series, and that was actually refreshing in a lot of ways because she only had that one episode, and everybody was wondering what happened to her. What happened to her? So now you get 6 whole episodes of her as one of Optimus Prime's like top tier like leaders in you know, in the group of Autobots that's trying to, you know, liberate Cybertron from Megatron's tyranny, because Megatron is pretty Stalin-esque.
He is. And you know, I really like, and people are like, oh, it's Optimus's love interest. That's who Elita. I'm like, no. Maybe that is an element, but like there is a level.
That was the emotion though.
There's the emotion. But again, this is where me being in combat, it's like, when you serve in the military, and especially when you serve in combat, like that bond that you have with the people around you, it's like, yes, it's like brother, sister, but it's, you know, it's about as close as you can be with another person, you know, because you're literally putting your lives in their hands. And so, yeah, they do have kind of that emotional connection, but also they've been through war together, and he really values what she brings to the table. Like she is a very, you know, he's got a lot of emotion, and I think they really did a good job of this in the show. Like he's got a lot of emotion behind his decisions, where a lot of times Alita's kind of like, can we take a second here? Can we think about this before we jump in? And, you know, the relationship that he has with Megatron really does taint a lot of his decisions. And I joke, I'm like, man, if they just listened to Elita, like we wouldn't have ended up where we are, because she called it. She's like, hey, this seems like a trap. Oh, look, it's a trap.
Optimus was naive. Like the original G1 Optimus was naive when he was on the axe.
And that's what they're showing with this series is this is showing Optimus's journey to becoming who we're familiar with in, you know, the movie franchises and so forth. But this is Optimus as a new leader, you know, still, you know, not always making the right choices. And it depends. I mean, obviously it's a different continuity. So like in the original series, he was more, he got more seasoned by the time of, you know, of the original cartoon. So it's a matter of, you know, time frame and stuff. So how much time is happening a little bit different. Now, one of the things that happened at the end of Siege was that emotional breakup in a way. Like, I'm staying behind. Yeah.
And that was probably one of the most emotional moments, I think, in the entire series. And that was one of the highlights, in my opinion, of Elita 1's character. Was that something that was difficult to deliver in a way, or is that more so like you know, because
I mean, I definitely, I mean, you know, there's a lot, and I love the writing on this show, and Elita has some really good moments where she has some pretty poignant things that she's saying. But yeah, that final moment, we definitely worked on that for a while, because it is, like you said, it's a turning point. It's, and it really, I think it really solidifies the character as well. It's like, if anyone says she's just his love interest, this solidified that moment. That's like, no. She is a warrior. She is a soldier. She is a leader. And her sole purpose right now is to save and protect her people. And she will do that to her very dying, you know, until all the spark is left in her. And with Optimus leaving, she knew I'm essentially second in command. You know, it is my job to stay here and protect who's left. And so,
Fresh
that was
Magnus.
Exactly.
You know.
It's like, that was a really important moment for me, and obviously for the show. And I love that it was, again, I love that it was a woman doing that. I love that, you know, okay, well, you go jump on this, you know, ship and go somewhere. I don't know where you're going, but someone's got to stay here in the ship, take care of everyone who's left. And and that's who she's always been, but that's really who she set herself out to be, is she is the person who will do what has to be done to make sure her people survive.
Cool. Yeah. And that's something actually that's bringing up now to Earthrise, and pause 1 second. Leads into her what's going to happen to her in Earthrise, which is coming up, and within the bounds of Hasbro and FJ DeSanto coming down and giving me so much. What can you say about what we've seen in the trailers, and where do you think that, how
okay, I can talk about what I've seen in the trailers.
Okay.
And here, I also have to say, like, I'm going to be just as surprised as you all, because we recorded this over 2 years ago.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I'm like, what was it that happened? So people are like, oh, can you tell us? I'm like, no spoilers. Also, I don't actually remember.
Yeah.
No. But, I mean, that's partially true. But, just going off exactly what was seen in the trailers, I think you do see kind of where, we're picking up right where Elita left off. And that she's been fighting, and, like they say in the trailer, I hate to break it to the Decepticons, but they've won. And she's just like, no, not while there's still spark left in us.
Good.
Which I really think is that one phrase is just a testament as to who this character is.
Yep.
She will never give up.
Yep.
She will die, but she will never give up. And she will fight till her very last day.
She actually,
these people.
if you remember in the original show, she had a time control power.
Yes. Yes.
And that, like, she was going to fight until she was dead to save Optimus Prime. Like, that was how much she's willing to fight for what she believes in. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that in Earthrise. Of course, again, I know you can't say anything also because you probably don't remember, but when you did the I was talking with Sean Hawkins before, and when I interviewed him, and he had talked about how you guys had done, some voice work nowadays in Hollywood is done in ensemble casts, and most of it nowadays it's done individual. Very little. Virtually
nothing is done in ensemble casts. Some animated series we're still doing ensemble casts, but that is maybe not even 1% of the work. Yeah, so almost all work is done individually.
Wow.
All of it.
Yeah.
And we didn't even know, for something like this, again, where privacy is so important, we didn't know who the other actors were.
Wow.
I knew who the voice director was. I had no idea who else was in the cast.
Wow.
None. Yeah.
Did you happen to, I guess you probably ran into them in the hallway or something like that, like on the way out or something like that, or?
No, they schedule you far enough. Where we record, there's no hallway, but yeah, they schedule you far enough apart. Sometimes you figure stuff out. It's like, oh, I got the call sheet for the day. Oh, so-and-so went in and recorded for this too. But, with the way that NDAs work, a lot of times the cast, you're just as surprised when things come out as everybody else.
Wow.
Because it's been shrouded in so much secrecy. And, like video games exactly are the same thing. It's like, I'll record games and one, not know what they are until I walk into the studio, and two, have no idea who else it is, until the game actually comes out. And it's like, oh, you were in that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Which kind of goes to show you like a little bit of how much talent that you have, because, or any of the voice talent nowadays is because you have to work with not bouncing off another actor. And yet still trying to deliver that same amount of emotion.
Yeah. And that's the one thing that really, which I think a lot of people maybe, don't understand about voiceover is, like I said, except for those rare exceptions, almost everything we do is by ourselves in a booth. And obviously with great voice directors. So that is like, you'll have the script and it's like, you'll read the other person's line, or maybe the voice director will say the other person's line and you have to react to it. And you might not even know the context of the scene. I mean, for Transformers, yes, I had the full script. I was able to see everything. But if we're going to video games, I'm getting a spreadsheet with lines. I have no idea what the context is. I have no idea who the other characters are. They won't even show me the other dialogue sometimes. So it's literally the voice director's like, okay, this is a situation. This is what's going on. This is what you're going to do. Give me 3 in a row. And that's why voice acting is a lot of times very different than on camera and theater, and that you really do have to it's on you. You have to
Yeah.
tap into your imagination. You have to tap into, your skills and training and everything, because you rarely have the luxury where you're going to be feeding off someone else.
Yeah.
If you do have those moments, they are glorious and magical things can happen. I have yet to ever do anything that involves an ensemble.
Wow. Yeah, that's how they did it back in the day too. It was like they used to have like let's say Beast Wars and G1, they would have the entire cast present.
Yeah.
And they would bounce off each other, especially when you had characters like, I don't know if you're familiar with Beast Wars at all, but there's a character named an actor named Scott McNeil, I think his name, and he would do the voice of Waspinator and Dinobot and Rat Trap, and he would literally bounce into those voices back and forth. Mm-hmm. And same thing in the original series. And when you had like a voice director like Wally Burr, who would speak into your ear like, no, I need it like this. Like, this is how he's supposed to sound. Like your accent's a little off, or, would make them do multiple takes, like all times of the day. And, so you hear about those moments, and then you hear now it's done so differently. Do you think that it affects, the way that shows come out now, at least as far as like performances, or do you think that
that's a hard question to ask, because, I mean, yes, I will say a lot of magic can happen when you have someone to work off, especially in comedy. With comedy, like a lot of that's banter back and forth, improv, gold will happen, which you would never be able to do on your own. With drama, it's a little, you don't necessarily have to deal with, comedic timing and things like that. But, I mean, yeah, as a performer, I love being able to feed off of someone else's energy, but it's just so uncommon that you really do. That is part of your skill set. That is part of what I think separates voice actors from a lot of other actors. And I'm not saying other people can't do this. Obviously, with green screens and CGI and motion capture, I do motion capture as well. It's like, you are having to learn how to be this performer by yourself in a bubble without any external stimuli to influence you. And so I think that, part of that is, maybe you do have to work a little harder, because you have to bring everything to the table yourself internally, as opposed to being able to feed off of another actor, or, you're on location or some amazing set or prop. Like, it's all coming out of here. And the voice actors who excel in this industry, your Jen Hales, your Bob Bergens, your, Candy Milos, your Grey Griffins. It's like, those are the people who have learned how to just bring it every time. Mm-hmm. And it really is a skill set. And, there's all different ways to act. And like I said, I still love theater. It's still my passion. But I think that's one thing that kind of sets voice actors aside, is that, we will have to walk into this empty booth and bring out these sometimes heart-wrenching performances, or hugely comedic performances, and we do it in a bubble. We do it on our own. And the people that can do that really well, the audience doesn't even know. Like you just said, they don't know that wasn't recorded, because it sounds like it was recorded with everyone there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And that's something that, like you said, like the ones who excel at it are the ones who, are obviously the most successful. And here you brought a character to life that needed that much emotion, and you were able to deliver that. And it was awesome, by the way. So, and it was actually for me, it was one of my favorite characters in the show. Some of the characters were kind of like stale, and some characters were really like alive. Your character in particular was one of my favorites, in Siege, and I'm hoping to see more of that in Earthrise. What do you have working on now that you can talk about? I know it's kind of hard, because you got to sign all those contracts and stuff.
I was gonna say, anything that's in development I can't talk about. I'm trying to think, like, well, I mean, I have stuff that's recently come out, like I'm in Wasteland 3, which people can see, NBA 2K21. I mean, again, have fun finding my voice. I'm in there somewhere. Yeah, if you're bored, if you're shopping at Whole Foods, you can hear me as the in-store announcer in Whole Foods, making jokes about, going and talking to the butchers. Yeah, no, it's hard because like everything we do is like, no, NDA until it comes out.
Yeah, wow.
So I wish I could be like, oh yes, I've got this amazing thing. You'll know about it in 2 years.
Can't talk about it. I've been in those shoes where you're working on something and you can't talk about it. You got to sign something. So believe me, I completely understand. Has the lockdowns affected your work or?
I will say those of us that do voiceover, we're lucky. I mean, I've had a home studio for several years. A lot of us in the voiceover industry have our own home studios. Quite a few people who have only ever worked in LA did have to scramble at the last minute to put together home studios. But, we've been able to keep going, which is great.
Yeah.
Work slowed down a little bit at the beginning. Auditions didn't. And then finally, as people started to realize, oh, these actors do have home studios. And, for things like video games and animation, it's a little bit harder because you do need to have, like, everyone's booth sounds different.
Right.
And so it makes it a little bit harder for the engineers to have to match sounds and everything. But yeah, we've kept going. That's been something that has been really a good thing, is that when everything else in Hollywood shut down, voiceover was pretty much all that was left. And it's because, we've learned how to do this on our own, a while ago. And with technology the way it is, I mean, obviously we couldn't have done this 10 years ago, but with where technology is now, it's like I can just tap into a studio, or I can do it over Zoom. And, commercials, video games, dubbing. I've done all of it from home.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. It probably keeps you busy at the same time too, because there's a lot of stuff that's come out.
I mean, and it's been hard. I mean, but the work has still been slower than everybody else, but it's like, when seeing everything else that's going on in the country, I have absolutely no business complaining. I am thankful every day that I do what I do and that I've been able to keep doing that, because so many people out there are struggling and hurting, and so
I mean, you're doing what you're doing. I'm trying to make YouTube videos to bring people joy, performer stuff.
I mean, and that's kind of how I feel. I was like, if there's and sometimes it's so silly. It's like, oh, you do voices. And it's like, you know what? But it's like, if it can make someone smile while people are sitting at home and Netflix and chilling, if this is something they can watch and it makes them forget about reality for 20 minutes, whatever, then that's important to me. I really, and because, I've been able to keep working, it's like I try to do things on the side to help other people. It's,
of course,
if it's donating to charities, if it's right now we're doing a toy drive for people who might not be able to afford presents for their kids this year. A group of us are doing that, and and that's where for me it's like, okay, cool. I have been lucky that I can keep doing what I do. Let me pay it forward some other way. And for people, because I have friends who, they're like, Lindsay, we don't know if we're going to lose our house next year, next month. And, we can't afford presents for our kids this year. And it's,
Fortunately, I mean, it's we've been trying to help where we can as well. And that's like you said, like, however we can help people out with through these times, it's a matter of, a work. Now on social media, you are a self-described geeky badass. So is there anything besides the D20s and the tabletop stuff that you are a super fan? Because we could talk tabletop, but we could talk about some of the other geeky stuff.
Yeah. So okay. So what do you want to know? Like,
so
what else?
Video games, comic books.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I describe that because I also I do a lot of martial arts and I do a lot of sword fighting. And so that's the badass side of things. Like, I train in HEMA, I train in Wushu, I've done Krav Maga, Sistema. Obviously, I played with firearms for many years. So I love, but if we're talking fandoms, I am a huge Doctor Who fan. I'm a massive Whovian. Of course, the X-Files. I love all things Middle Earth and Tolkien. And the X-Files is still like one of my favorite fandoms of all, or my favorite shows of all time. Of course, I play D&D for a living, you know, when I'm not doing voiceover. And that was the other thing is when I did, when the show was announced back in April and I saw how excited people were about Elita 1, I was like, you know what? There's so many amazing female characters in geekdom. I really want to start highlighting them. And so I was working with my friend, and he's kind of like my assistant, Jeff Burns, and we came up with this idea for the Be Elita post that I do every day. And so every day on Twitter, for anyone who cares, every day on Twitter, I post another Be Elita character, and it's another female character in fandom, comics, video games, animation, movies, television, whatever. Because I'm just like, you know, because I had people reach out and they were like, wow, we didn't really know there was any cool female Transformers. And I was just like, yes, there's so many amazing female characters in all these fandoms. Now. So I think we're up to, at last, I think we've hit 280 characters because I've literally been tweeting every day since April. So,
wow.
And at first I was only going to do it for like until the show came out in July. And then I was like, no, we're going to keep doing this. Because for me, like I said, it's really important that people realize that no matter who you are, there is someone out there. Fandom is for everybody. And you just need to find what that niche is for you. And maybe it's one thing, maybe it's many things. And, you know, Fabled 42, which is the network I produce and stream for and have a talk show. One of the things that was really important with us is that we are all about inclusion, and we want this to be a family for everybody. You know, I don't care what you identify as, what your walk of life is, where you come from. Like, fandoms can bring us all together. And
that's one of the things
something that's really exciting for me. It's like, we don't need gatekeepers. It's not just for like, you know, little boys or, you know, bearded men in their basements. It's like, no, this is for everybody. And nobody should be ashamed to say, I'm a Transformers fan, I'm a Star Wars fan. Like, that should be something we should all embrace and celebrate.
I can agree with that as far as like bringing the fandoms together. Definitely, you know, like so that people can enjoy like what they like, you know, about each thing. Like, you know, like I love the original trilogy of Star Wars, and I'm a big Transformers fan, and I get to enjoy it with my kids. You know, where they get to see that cool stuff as well and get to be, you know, a part of it is a lot of fun. And I'm sure once these lockdowns finally end, we can all get together with conventions again and, you know, dress in our favorite costume and
yes,
you know.
I miss conventions so much. It's been so hard not having them. It really has. I was planning on going to a few. In fact, I was actually going to be on a panel earlier this year at a convention, and then obviously that convention got canceled. So it's like, oh no, you know. And so it was a lot of stuff that just kind of got messed up this year. But you know, at least well, obviously, because like season 1 dropped like 2 weeks before Comic-Con was supposed to happen, and I was just like, and I do Comic-Con. You know, it's so hard. It's because conventions are so much about, and I was actually just talking about this on my talk show on Wednesdays. I host a talk show every Wednesday, The Rollout. Watch it on Twitch. It's also on YouTube every Friday at noon. But one thing we were talking about was a game store owner is that one of the reasons I think that makes especially things like tabletop gaming and one of the reasons we love it is it's a way to connect with people. And, you know, you sit down with a group of people and maybe you don't even know each other at the beginning, but by the end, you're best friends. And we still do it virtually. You know, I'm still playing D&D virtually, but it's not the same. And conventions are just like that too. It's like, oh, I can have a virtual convention, and I've done some, but it's not the same as being able to be like, yo, dude, I love your cosplay, or like, wow, did you see? And you know, being able to see people in person and
how much work they put into their cosplays is like,
it's really, and even with fandom, it's like, yeah, people reach out to me on Twitter, and you know, I try to respond to everybody. If I haven't responded to you, I'm sorry. I try to respond to everyone, but it's not the same as being able to like literally walk up to someone. And I've done that at conventions. Like I've walked up to people and been like, you know what, you were amazing in XYZ. You know, and because I remember I did that for, you know, and I don't tend to fangirl about people. I again, I'm a professional, but when I did meet Jennifer Hale at a convention a couple years ago, I just very politely went up and was like, I just want you to know you're the reason I got into voiceover. And that was it.
I fanboyed with Peter Cullen.
Yeah.
So, because he's Optimus Prime. So like I had to like, and you know, I kind of feel like an idiot when I did.
I mean, there's a way to do it. Like, there's like the screamy, creepy fans, but then there's, you know, it's just like, and it's, I feel like it's, you're recognizing and showing people your appreciation.
Yep.
And that's what is so exciting about the work that we do, is being, and again, because again, I've been a lifelong fan, so I've been on the other side and been like, oh my God, Comic-Con, this is amazing. And then to be on the other side of that and just realize, you know,
now people are coming up to you and they want a picture with you and they want your
autograph. It's like, and you do have to, so it just makes it, especially for me, it's like, I know how important it is to do justice to a character, to do justice for a franchise. And no, but you're not going to please everyone. There's always going to be haters. There's always going to be, this person loves it, this person hates it. We've seen that with Star Wars. Perfect example.
Yeah.
So
let's
it's
not
like
even get into that one, because that's an argument that'll take 3 hours.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're never going to please everyone. But, you know, if as long as you feel like you are doing right by, you know, and you are helping contribute to this world that means so much to so many people.
So, so you say you're big into D&D, and this is gonna be the last question I want to talk about is D&D, because that is obviously like, it seems to be your definitely your thing. Did you happen to notice that the Allspark was a D20?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I want one. I want a custom Allspark. So, because like I remember when they okay. Here.
Well, so I have one right here. It's 3D printed, and it's a D20 definitely, but it's Cybertronian lettering. So, you know, but that's the thing. Like, so basically, just get a gold D20.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to see if I can talk to the person who made this. See if I can get.
I would love. Okay, so like I will. This is my streaming chair. So here's my dice. This is my dice collection. So
nice.
Yes, I will take a gold one. So that's amazing. Yeah, I remember when I saw that, and I was like, has it always been like this?
No, because that's actually something.
Because I've been playing D&D so much in quarantine.
I wonder if the people who made Transformers Cyberverse, who made it a D20, thought about it as a D20 when they designed it. So that was probably their thought process.
Right.
So like that was like one of the cool things about it. And but like you say, you're big into D&D, so you like do a lot of tabletop gaming, which is one of the things that brings people together. It is a fandoms thing to. So when Stranger Things came out, I'm sure you were all about, you know, how they were playing D&D on that too, which was absolutely.
And it's so funny because, you know, we used to joke like, you know, and we've talked about this on my talk show quite a bit, is how, you know, like nerds used to hide in the shadows and now we're the cool ones. We're the mainstream ones. It's like Critical Role happened and
now like when I was a kid, like I used to get beat up all the time.
Yeah. Well, and then as you know, that's the other thing. And again, going back to, not to harp on it, but like, you know, women playing tabletop games, women playing D&D, it was like,
geeky nerds wanted the girls to play. It's just
and now, but we didn't always feel like we were welcome. And now there is literally a home for everyone. And, you know, and we're seeing that change, like with how the games are as well. It's like the latest, you know, expansions with Wizards. It's like, hey, we're getting rid of like good and evil. We're no longer saying XYZ race is inherently evil. Like we're starting to see that. Like we've always been playing that way. I do
like the alignments. I prefer the alignments. Like I like the idea behind lawfully good and lawfully evil,
but the fact that they're tied to a race, you know, and the fact that like they've gotten rid of that, and so it's really exciting in that, you know, we've always made characters our own, and now that we're starting to see, and you're getting more and more tabletop games that, you know, are coming from, you know, all types of creatives. It's become so much more inclusive. And I think that's also really helped is like, yes, we've had some big, you know, things like Critical Role happen that have made fandom cool, but also we've got developers coming out with products that it's like, oh, I actually relate to this. I see myself in this. This is something I want to do.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
So it has been an absolutely pleasure talking to you. I know you have you have a lot of projects you have to work on.
I have to go to a session.
Yep. So, you know, Linsay, why don't you, you know, tell us where we can find you on Twitter, on Twitch. You said you have a talk show.
You guys can find me on Twitter Twitter, Instagram. I'm just Linsay Rousseau. As long as you spell my name right, you'll find me. I also I have a weekly talk show called The Rollout, which streams live on Twitch for Fabled 42 every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific. You can also find all of the videos on YouTube every Friday at noon Pacific time. And I stream D&D every Monday at 5:30 Pacific live on Fabled 42, and every other Sunday I stream our Adventures in Middle Earth game. But yeah, you can check out
those links in the description just so everybody knows.
Yeah. Check out my website or go to fabled42.com for all of that stuff. So it's like, yeah, I've got all my voiceover and all my D&D stuff. Like that is my life now.
Awesome.
Yeah, if you have any, you know, questions or anything, please, you know, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Instagram. Like I said, I try to respond to everybody that reaches out to me because I know what it's like to be a fan. And so, yeah.
Awesome. So I want to know what you guys think. I hope you've enjoyed our chat here with Linsay. I'm sure Aerith did while you were playing with your toys in the background. So of course, leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video and subscribe. Check out my other videos as well. Be sure to check out Linsay's all of her fun stuff that she's told us. It will be in the description. And as always, guys, until next time, till all are one.